Hello, everybody, and welcome to another NPCs Weekly News Roundup. It is October 21st, 2022, and tonight we'll be talking about how devs want Xbox to drop the requirement for developing for the Xbox Series S, which frankly sounds a little bizarre. We'll talk more about that. Of course, we'll also be talking about how G4 is no more. Again, the sad news coming out of California about the demise of the once popular gaming television service. And of course, we'll also be talking about the Resident Evil and Silent Hill showcases that occurred this week and all the new things shown off in those franchises. That and more in today's weekly news roundup. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup for the week of November 20th, 2020. It is Friday. It is, where's my date? It's September 18th. 2020 here to our first story, and this is actually breaking news for all of us right now here too. Figured this is a kind of a big one to cover, of course, with who it is. Joined via Discord by Kyle because we're in the midst of a pandemic still, and of course everything is all kinds of crazy. So this thing is a chonker. I mean,
yeah, it's a beast.
It's huge. Doing that we had the Resident Evil stuff, that they were successful with Castlevania. Welcome to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup. And it's the news time. I am joined, of course, by Kyle via Discord. Kyle, hello.
What's up?
Man. And there we go. We're up, we're running, we're live, we are on the air. Welcome, everybody, yet again to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup. Again, it is October, what I say? It is the 21st. Really? Jeez. Okay. Halloween is 10 days away, folks. But don't worry about that because Kyle's already there with you. He's got his Dennis the Menace costume going on here right now. If you go look up the Dennis the Menace movie from the 90s and look at that character there and look at how Kyle is right now, Kyle is our Dennis the Menace.
Well, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's the only intro I could provide given that we're so close to Halloween now, too. So you're welcome. I know I'm not going to, anyway. It's all good. Anyway, we've got some news to talk about though tonight, Kyle. It's some fascinating things, some sad things, and one confusing thing. And I think we're going to start out with the confusing thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, and that confusing thing happens to be about devs asking Xbox to drop the requirement to develop for the Xbox Series S. Now, when Microsoft released the Xbox Series X and S, obviously the X is the top performer in the category, where it has the full ray tracing. It has 4K support out of the box. It's got basically all of the beefiness behind it, whereas, also includes the disk drive, whereas the Xbox Series S is the digital version, which ends up being more affordable, can only do 1440p max, but even so has still been one of the more popular consoles that has sold for Microsoft since the Series line was launched. But in reporting from Video Games Chronicle, apparently there has been talk going on about trying to get Microsoft to drop this requirement. So here's what they report on here. They say VFX artist Ian McClure made the claim on Twitter in response to a comment from veteran games journalist Jeff Gerstmann, who said he thinks the whole Series S is holding back the next-gen games argument doesn't hold up. And Jeff Gerstmann goes on to say most of these games also come to PC and already have to cover a wide variety of configs. McClure, who worked on last year's Xbox Series X and S and PC game I Am Fish at Bossa, which also develops and publishes the Surgeon Simulator series, responded, "It might sound broken, but the reason you are hearing it a lot right now is because many developers have been sitting in meetings for the past year desperately trying to get Series S launch requirements dropped." So when I saw this article this morning, Kyle, I had to go look at because Jeff Gerstmann made the comment about PC. Okay. And I went over to the Steam hardware survey to see what the last results were that came in. And of course, it's September's. And do you want to know what's interesting right now on like what's supported, like, or at least like the top level support right now?
I'd probably say it's 20 series cards.
No.
1060s?
The top card is a GTX 1060. Now, it doesn't say which model 1060 because there's two. There's a 6 gigabyte memory model and a 3 gigabyte memory model. The 1060 is in first place with 6.73% utilization across hardware. Coming in second place at 6.11% is the GTX 1650. The third one is the RTX 2060. So you don't even get to a 20 series card until third place. And then after
Wow.
that, out of everything, this is going to shock you too. The fourth place one is a GTX 1050 Ti.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't even hit anything that's like a heavy hitter until past like 10th place here. Like you got a 3060 laptop GPU, the regular 3060, the 1660 Ti, the 1660 Super, the GTX 1050, and then finally you hit the RTX 3070 at what place was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10th place. And it
Well,
only
that's not entirely surprising.
no,
I mean,
no, that's it's
you
not.
had the lack of card availability, and a lot of miners still were buying cards, through the whole thing. But beyond that, now that cards have been more readily available, there's really not a lot of money for it at this time. We just came out of the pandemic, and there's other stuff going on in the world now that's making it more expensive to just live. And now all of a sudden these more expensive cards are launching, and they're even the generation of card that we just saw with the 30 series cards, even it's still almost half price every now and then. That's still a really expensive card to go out and buy. So it's totally understandable that people are hanging on. And I mean, not only that, processors have been moving so incredibly fast here lately. It's hard to match up your hardware unless you're buying a pre-build.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right in that regard, but even so, the fact though that it does make sense that of course hardware availability is going to always be a problem and people are going to be constrained to what they can get. So to see things like the
Hmm.
1060, the 1650, the 1660 up there in the beginning of it, in the top part of the list, that's not really a shock because they are
Yeah.
capable cards. You're not going to be able to play like everything out there at the best quality possible, but you're at least still going to be able to play games. Now, one of the other interesting parts though about the data here is that the amount of VRAM that's actually in the graphics cards, though, at least as they report right now, is tops at 25% of respondents, it was 8 GB. That's the exact same amount of VRAM available in the Xbox Series S right now. There's
Hmm.
10 gigs total with 8 GB set for VRAM and then 2 GB for the operating system. So literally,
Well,
it's the fact though that it's the argument that you have all these different configurations for computers to support, and yes, minimum requirements are put out there for some AAA
mhm.
titles. Needless to say, there's still a lot of hardware to support out there.
Right. But the it seems that the problem that they're encountering at studios doesn't seem to be the processor or the video processing. It's actually in memory constraints.
Well, even with the memory constraints, like I believe they made some changes there to actually deal with the memory issue. What was it?
Right. But
Several
I I,
months
I
ago.
think yeah, it's not only just processing, but it is the memory with the VRAM and with the actual processing or the like actual RAM of the system. It's just I don't think necessarily enough for what people are capable of. Or what current games are like being put out there is what I guess I should say. I phrased that poorly.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the titles that people want to play.
Yeah.
If they're playing the titles that, are the ones easy enough to hop into, like the ones that maybe don't require the big graphical push. Like let's say, like Cyberpunk 2077, or I'm trying to think of another big like graphically intensive gamer off the top of my head. Um, I don't know why I'm having such a problem with this, but like even like Doom Eternal is another big one though. But anyway, if they're playing like the same games that they normally do over and over again anyway, like on PC, Counter Strike is one of them, and on console, Call of Duty is the big one that people are always hopping into. Um, it's like if you're doing multiplayer, you're more worried about how fast you're going to be going versus how things look.
This
So
is also true.
yeah, so I guess what it comes down to is how many of these developers are actually speaking up about this as being a problem. And
Yeah.
what else could Microsoft potentially do to address it other than a Series S refresh with more RAM?
Mhm.
Hmm. I mean,
Yeah.
unless they can somehow figure out how to open up some type of like caching onto the SSD to allow for some more RAM of some, in some capacity, because it uses the same PCI lanes to do it.
But on the other hand, it is, the public does have to consider too, and developers do have to consider. It's supposed to be the affordable option
Mm-hmm.
for the end user. It's the $300 system that you don't necessarily have to buy the game discs for because it has no way of actually reading them. So with that knowledge, I mean, to ask to tailor the graphics. I mean, it's just like saying, put a standard, graphic setting for low,
Mm-hmm.
and potentially put that as the Xbox Series S for, games going forward. That is a possibility until we get a refresh. But I mean, eh, there's so much compatibility with games anymore, and the Xboxes anymore are like computers, and I've said that time and time again. So I feel like for them to respond negatively to the Series S as developers, that's not fair because it's literally just allowing Xbox or Microsoft to have more end users experience their the publishers games and the developers games.
Yeah, and I like that argument. I like all of that there. If they had a requirement out there that still says they had to develop for the Xbox One in some capacity, I could honestly stand behind the developers, and it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm standing right behind you. You guys don't have to do you shouldn't have to develop for this older hardware now. It's just it's the nature of the business, especially in the console world versus the PC environment, where you can swap out parts
Well,
and give yourself that extra bump. But yeah,
and
it's they don't have they don't have to worry
yeah,
about
and
that.
the argument could be made that the Xbox One X was technically a more powerful unit, excluding, some caveats to the Series S, but beyond that, it was still a more expensive unit to produce. The die was more expensive to produce, and overall cost, outcome, well, we saw it just was kind of a short run system. They didn't do a ton of them, and they were kind of a little bit more difficult and to get, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. It seems more like maybe the One X was kind of like the trial box or something like that to actually get things
yeah.
running for the next line. But needless to say, like I would like to see what Microsoft maybe comes out with to potentially address some of this. Whether we do see like just like the rumors were, I think at the end of last year that Microsoft was going to be focusing on a Series S refresh first, or if they're going to provide some other sort of compatibility um, that allows for games to take advantage of more system resources. Outside of the development side of it, maybe there will be
Mhm.
some other change, but we won't know until Microsoft actually puts some numbers out there for us to see what the actual problem is.
Or unless we see another development kit on Phil Spencer's shelves.
Yeah, yeah, especially that, or if Linus Tech Tips picks one up again and tears it apart and tries to play games on it again.
Right.
Yeah, in one way or another, we're gonna see that happen. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on here to the next one, and this one wasn't necessarily a surprise. This one was definitely more of a kind of saw the writing on the wall with it, and that is that G4 is no more again. So G4, the television channel that, to be quite honest, inspired a lot of the stuff that Kyle and I think I can speak for Kyle on this, that we've actually done
Mhm.
towards, the news things and all that on the podcast here and on the live stream. Um, inspired that when we were growing up to be able to experience a lot of stuff gaming wise that we couldn't really pull in off the internet because YouTube wasn't as fleshed out as it is now. The same goes for the adoption of streaming services like Twitch and YouTube gaming and the other platforms that did exist but are gone now. But even with all that stuff that exists, G4 still held a place in our hearts, but unfortunately, it just did not work out properly. And so, on at the beginning of this week, on Sunday, G4 got shut down. Apparently, what had ended up happening is that there was an email that was sent out from the CEO, David Scott. He's the CEO of the company Comcast Spectator, which is just a sub company. What he said is, let's see, where is the email? It says, as you know, G4 was reintroduced last year to tap into the popularity of gaming. We invested to create the new G4 as an online and TV destination for fans to be entertained, be inspired, and connect with gaming content. Over the past several months, we worked hard to generate that interest in G4, but viewership is low and the network has not achieved sustainable financial results. This is certainly not what we hoped for, and as a result, we have made the very difficult decision to discontinue G4's operations effective immediately. I know this is disappointing news, and I'm disappointed too. I want to thank you and everyone on the G4 team for the hard work and commitment to the network. So, basically, yeah, they dropped this memo out on a Sunday evening, and for a lot of the new hosts of G4's shows, whether it was the return of Attack of the Show, whether it was X-Play, whether it was some of the stuff that was in the works or other things they were doing, for a lot of those hosts, they found out via Twitter. So
That's horrible. That seems to be a growing trend anymore, and that's just terrible.
like last minute firings
Yeah.
or
Through Twitter or
terminations, yeah.
through, social media or something. You find out third party. It's like, wow, cool.
Yeah. And it's part of it is really sad to actually see though that they did get hit so fast that they did. And I mean, I made this our the thumbnail for the news live stream here. But a lot of it started to resurge and come back in 2020 because of a random reactivation of the original Twitter accounts for Attack of the Show and X-Play. And then we saw a Thanksgiving special that did kind of a retrospect and brought Olivia Munn, Kevin Pereira, I think Morgan Webb was there too, Adam Sessler, Blair Herter, like all the different hosts that were there during the time when we were growing up came back for that retrospect and we're showing things off. And I got to be honest, it got me really excited about it.
Yeah, no, it did me too. And,
Mhm.
I think maybe part of it too was they did have a lot of traction. I felt like initially I had heard so much buzz from people about, being excited about, what was to come, about potentially a new Attack of the Show, potentially
Mhm.
a new X Play. And then we waited and we waited. And they did their specials every now and then, but they didn't seriously kick off until quite a few number of months down the line.
Yeah, it was a lot of like filler that we had there because I think they were in the midst of building things up, but it wasn't until I think about mid last year that like around maybe like midsummer that they actually came back like
Hmm.
all the way. And we started to see some stuff come up, and it was a mixed media environment that they were using Twitch and YouTube to stream stuff. They were putting content up on YouTube. They had television channels back up on a couple regular television services, including Pluto TV for those who use that streaming service. But outside of that, even though it was mixed media, which is what a lot of companies are doing anyway, it felt like what happened is at the start of G4 being like built back up and getting to that point of coming back is that like for you, and just like what you said, is that there was a lot of buzz behind it. There was a lot of that, and a lot of it came from the people who grew up with G4. Because
Exactly.
exactly. And then what happened with the content? Well, they did their best. I think X Play actually was handled about as well as it could be given the changes in the environment. Attack of the Show, I think, had to evolve to what it became, and it was definitely still enjoyable to mostly a point. Like, we couldn't have some of the stuff like around the net because, YouTube isn't as obscure now as it was at that point, and it's easy enough to go find things to keep you entertained. Um, but even with all of that, some of the other things just didn't seem to make sense, and it felt like they used the nostalgia to get the older generation back in, but the people they wanted to bring back in, they alienated by trying to adapt to bringing in a lot of the younger generation, but they did it way too fast almost. It's like, okay, well, we've got them hooked now. Now let's go ahead and bring in the younger ones by changing up and adding in all these other things.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that it's like it was the worst idea per se, maybe if they had slowed down a bit more, but I mean, again, a lot has changed since the station got shut down in 2012.
Oh, definitely. The whole climate of how media is shared in general for games and just, wacky internet crap. The whole dynamic shifted,
Mm-hmm.
there's Facebook and Twitter and everyone's got smartphones now. It's not just, a select group of people that have smartphones, and everyone's connected to the internet now. So, it's not like even if you don't have a computer, you have a smartphone, you can just hop on and you can see some of this stuff. You don't have to, wait for your favorite show about the internet, to see a video that you can look up later.
Yeah. Uh, what I will say, though, at least about it, is that while they were trying to at least make the adjustments to their viewership, though, to bring in that younger generation, because that's how a lot of these gaming channels thrive anyway on YouTube and Twitch.
Mhm.
Um, the talent that they actually had on screen was really on point, though. I think by having Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler back to kind of like kick things off and get it going, and to help like educate and bring in the skills that they really needed to be able to be on G4, even though a lot of it was a lot of the goofing around and such. But hey, that's what made G4 G4. But bringing
Yeah.
in Austin Creed, of course, bringing in Golden Boy, Gina Darling, the Completionist, it Frost Coon, Olivie. They did a good job of building up the talent, and they had such a wide array of talent that helped to bring all those different unique perspectives. And at the same time, they
Hmm.
didn't have to overly sexualize anything like what happened with G4 when we were growing up, with the way Olivia Munn was treated, with the way that oh my God, Candace Bailey was treated too. And then oh my God, she's a former Playboy model, but I can't remember her name because she was also a host on there too. Um, it's like for a few of those from back at that point in time, it's like there was a lot of that
Hmm.
emphasis. We didn't have any of that with it, and it changed with the time. The talent set was great, but I just think something with moving too quick into the new generation just didn't work out right.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No, I fully agree. And not only that, especially, with some of the longer format stuff, I feel like some of their shows did get off the rails. They tried to do, because they were trying to do the internet format stuff, longer podcasts that were full shows. Some of it got off the rails, or some of the topics just became uninteresting after a long time. But maybe that was just me.
no, I don't really think it was just you. Like I was saying, there was that things like Attack of the Show were always kind of that goofy one. They had serious things they talked about. They had the interviews they did. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it really did feel like something was just done over the top, that in regards to how they were trying to bring people in. Um, but
Well,
I
and
just I don't know.
maybe that's me being just victim of watching it in the early days of its return. When they were still running back and forth from one office to another, and trying to communicate that way, when they were having co-streams and podcasts and stuff. And you'd see someone literally run through the hallway behind in an open door, um, just to make it to a different studio or whatever for another segment. And it
Yeah,
it just felt really broken. And I personally didn't feel like, watching some of the stuff at the end, they didn't quite get past that. But then they saw some of the you did see a little bit of some of the old stuff that was coming back that was actually working.
Yeah. Like apparently they had
But
Arena in the works, like they hadn't even debuted an episode of Arena yet. And then
oh
from what I
man,
was reading from Gina Darling on her Twitter, she said that they, at least I think it was her, someone there from G4 actually said that they were very close to having the new Ninja Warrior episodes actually ready to go. And I'm talking like
oh,
the Japanese Ninja Warrior, like
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, like that was stuff that was very close to actually becoming available, and I think we were supposed to see like the first episode potentially at the end of November. So
See, and
yeah, that's
that's
gone now.
unfortunate that we never saw that. I mean, and they could have been successful with, even bringing back shows like Cinematech, even just 30-minute segments that you could get access to online and run in like a chain. Just make a playlist of Cinematech episodes because there are kids that, be honest, there are kids that would totally watch that over and over and over again. Just because I used to do that when I was a kid, I know.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to have that, especially because like you think about some of the videos that are up there for kids right now. Like you think like the
Mhm.
Cocomelon stuff and that like imagine especially like if you put on something like Cinematech where it's like the really like open world like landscape type video game trailers and that showcasing and featuring those that would be um massive.
Yeah.
That would be awesome, I think. And it's like for a lot of people, for gamers who have kids now, that would be fantastic to put up. But um, one thing I will say, though, again, of course, at least as I was talking about um, the the team behind all of this, like the actual talent here.
Hmm.
Let me drop this to you really quick in Discord there, Kyle, so you have it. I'm going to leave it as the last thing here is that this did affect real people. Like this did affect actual people here. And of course, oops, let me change this around here really quick. Let's see, you are right there. Okay, and unfortunately, I can't. Well, yeah, I could probably move stuff around here. Let's see here. I need to grab that, and I'll move that up there. So this is from Gina Darling that she posted yesterday, and this was her just back there on the Attack of the Show set for that last time. Honestly, yeah, and she was. I mean, that's the human side of it. It makes me feel awful, you know.
If you want to join us on Discord, click right here below where we can check out all of your edits
Oh man.
and questions.
Yeah,
That's better.
yeah. So it's like I mean, I hate to do stuff like that to bring that up, but it's like I mean that's the human impact of it is that it's like a bunch of people just lost their jobs. Not only your front end like creator or the actual creators of stuff, but also the behind the scenes crew, the film team, the animators, the editors, the all of them. So it's yeah. At least at that, the human toll sucks ass with it. Tell you that much. Damn. All right. Well, I'm sorry to completely blow up
Yeah.
the mood here in this one, but goddamn. All right. Well,
That's
rest in
that's just so sad. Yeah.
rest
Rest
in
in peace,
rest in peace again.
G4.
Again, G4. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to something else that is not as dead then because Jesus Christ. All right. Man, I killed the mood really hard in here. God, all right, let's pick it up
Yeah.
a notch.
No kidding.
Let,
Holy
let's
cow.
kick it up a notch here because I had to showcase some of the stuff. Let's kick it off here with something else that's about the dead but is not dead, and that is Resident Evil. And that's right, they had Capcom had a Resident Evil showcase. I believe it was just yesterday. Yeah, it was on the 20th, and they showed off a couple different things. So, Kyle, how much did you actually look at any of this?
In all honesty, none.
You
I knew what was
you
coming.
son of a.
Um, for village anyway. But yeah, I didn't really see anything else other than the multiplayer game I've been waiting for forever that I don't even care to play anymore.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't even know what happened to that game anyway, and like after all of this.
Yeah.
But like what's interesting though is that it's like, we've got some, I believe it's like the final DLC for Resident Evil Village. It adds in third person camera mode, adds in a brand new story as well as new mercenaries, and it's supposed to launch on the 28th, so next Friday.
Well, to my knowledge, this is the only DLC, really.
I thought there were others before this. I wonder what else changed.
Well, I mean,
Maybe I'm crossing
there
paths
were a
with
few
something.
DLCs that, like, if you got the deluxe edition and stuff, you got a special, like, keychain thing for, a gun charm, and then you got a survival pack, I want to say. And
Oh,
there were a
so
few different ones depending on, where you purchased it from or something like that, I think. But
specifically DLC as it relates to cosmetics and that, just in-game items versus
yeah.
story-based. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, okay then. So there's that, and then yes, we get that, and then there is a demo up right now. You can play for a total of 60 minutes with Resident Evil Village's third person. So if you want to be able to do that, it looks like maybe it's a separate game outside of the actual Resident Evil Village you may already have on your console or on your PC. But even so, at least it's out there and you'll be able to experience it, because now everybody's going to have to be in the right state of mind here, because they also announced a full remake, not a shocker on this one, a full remake of Resident Evil 4, Kyle. And
yeah.
now I have to adjust my video here so I can actually bring this back up again.
Yeah, I did it really need it?
Do you want to know the bad news about it, though?
What's that?
That I learned through IGN. IGN actually saw that, you remember at the beginning of Resident Evil 4 when you're walking along that path, there's the wolf that you can save stuck in the bear trap?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you get up to that bear trap now, the wolf is already dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know how IGN saw that. I don't know if there was another gameplay video or something. I think there was some extended gameplay, but they were able to at least see that. But yeah, just like the other Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 4 has gone ahead and received the remake treatment. It should be, at least as far as I've seen so far, we'll stick with the Resident Evil 4 formula for everything we saw and were introduced to, just with the nice, polished, updated graphics and audio as we've seen in the other Resident Evil remakes.
What is that?
Yeah, I still just don't know and don't feel like that it was necessarily needing a remake. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a fan favorite, but maybe that's one of the reasons it didn't need the remake, is it didn't really need to be touched.
Well, it's just like a lot of other games, and that it's like, what really denotes needing a remake of some type, though? You know, like what denotes, like, I guess it's like, what should you consider a cutoff for a remake of some type, though? Like, how long? But Resident Evil 4 has been re-released a couple different times, I think, since its original. But, not a full remaster like this, though. Or full remake.
Well, yeah, I was going to say this isn't even necessarily a remaster, because, like you said, that one segment in the beginning with the dog is different. I guess entering the village, one of the first things you do is you go downstairs into a basement instead of, going upstairs. I want to say that's the house with the shotgun that you pick up right at the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just subtle differences that, they've already shown. But, of course, there's probably going to be much more than that, especially after seeing, what they've done with 2 and 3 for their remakes. So.
Mm-hmm. And Serpent Knight here in comments adds, I'd almost rather they did this with Code Veronica, which you'd be shocked that there's a lot of people who actually spoke up and said the same thing, that it's like, why did they not do Code Veronica? Because I think in regards to the actual release timeline, it was Code Veronica after 3, wasn't it? Or was Code Veronica a
It
part of
was
2?
actually Code Veronica released on, I want to say it was the PS2 and the Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah. And that one was
So
released, but Code Veronica's a tie-in, I thought, with Resident Evil 2, though, right? Isn't Veronica
um
it's like something going on along the side?
yeah, I want to say I can't remember if it was a tie-in with 2 or 3, but it's an after the fact and it takes place on, I believe, an island. So it's like a separate area. It's been a long time since I played that one. But that being said, why hasn't that one gotten the remake treatment? I mean, that is one in particular that we've seen fewer re-releases of, just in general, to put it out on a different console. I mean, I think they had it on Xbox, but it was literally just the HD version of the Dreamcast version of the game.
Yeah.
So it had upscaled graphics from the Dreamcast version, but no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, which I recall that. I played the PS2 version of uh, Resident Evil Code Veronica a little bit, and then I did beat 4 on PlayStation 2.
Hmm.
I just don't recall as much from it, though.
But yeah, Code Veronica was released before 4.
Yeah. Yeah, but there were a lot of fans that really spoke up about it, though. Is like, why did they not do that next? And Konami actually came out, or not Konami, but Capcom. We'll talk about Konami after this. But Capcom came out and said that they had no plans in the works right now to do Code Veronica. So if there's anything that ends up getting happen, or anything that's going to happen, is either going to be fan based or it's going to be something way down the line from them. Like, I think it's going to have to be a big fan outcry.
Or potentially it just didn't match their new narrative. So who knows? Maybe 5-6 years down the line they can 5 and 6, or 5 and 6, and we get a whole different game for what should have been in those places.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like they're making subtle changes to the narrative as is. I mean, 5 I didn't think was too terrible. I actually really enjoyed 5. 6 got completely off the rails though.
Oh yeah, especially because the fact that Chris Redfield's biceps were the size of his entire body.
Yeah, and then you had Wesker's son as a team member that he was teamed up with Ashley, which didn't make sense. So I don't know.
Yeah. But that's really the big stuff there out of the Resident Evil side. Are you not going to pick it up then, Kyle? Are you not going to go down the path
No,
of
I'll pick it up.
Okay. Okay, I just had to ask.
Yeah, no, I'll pick it up, especially if it's Steam Deck compatible. I've got to play it on there.
Okay. No, I
But
understand.
if it's not, that's fine. I'll play it on my PC and I'll still have it on Steam. So
that works, dude. That works. So yeah, be on the lookout because that's going to release in March of this next year. But let's move on. Let's move on to the other stuff that was actually announced though too, and that happens to be Silent Hill had its own stream. What they called, I think, the Silent Hill transmission. And honestly, there have been a lot of people have been waiting for news about Silent Hill, especially after the project with Norman Reedus, Hideo Kojima, and Guillermo del Toro all fell through with Konami because of everything else that was happening there at that point in time. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff announced actually out of here. And this one, I got to say, with what we got announced, tops what we just saw with the Resident Evil stuff too. So, Kyle, before I go into any of this, what have you seen on it so far? Is this another one?
I listened to a thing on kind of a recap on what happened with this one, but I've never really been a huge Silent Hill fan myself. So I can say I've never completed one at least. So it didn't like super grab me, but yeah, I know a little bit about what's going on.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have enough information on the universe either, but I know that at least in regards to the actual level of popularity on things, I saw more like hooting and hollering just because there's more Silent Hill stuff coming out. So let's just kick off things here with what's been announced so far. So first and foremost, we have the announcement of Silent Hill 2 being remade. And of course, it's definitely getting the best treatment possible with the remake itself. So this follows the original Silent Hill, where I can't remember the name of the guy here. What is it, James? Yeah, I see it here in the video description. So James is out to actually go look for his wife, where let's see here. Let me read the description. Having received a letter from his deceased wife, James heads to where they shared so many memories in the hope of seeing her one more time, Silent Hill. There by the lake, he finds a woman eerily similar to her. My name is Maria, the woman smiles. Her face, her voice, she's just like her. Experience a masterclass in psychological survival horror, lauded as the best in the series on the latest hardware with chilling visuals and visceral sounds. Which I gotta say, I mean, it does look pretty dang good, though, but if you go back
It does.
like if you go back and look at it compared to the like original game, it's like obviously there's a big jump since Silent Hill 2 originally came out in the early 2000s. I think like late 90s, early 2000s, yeah. But so yeah, that got the nice treatment there for the remake, and that is supposed to be releasing. Oh, I don't know if they actually gave a date on it. Let me see if I can find one without interrupting the actual video here. Let's see. To the internet on the other device. Silent Hill 2 remake release date.
So the weird thing though, or at least the one thing that I found weird, and this is the one thing that kind of
no release
made
date.
my ears perk up, because I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of either game or the game series and then game. Bloober Team is the one that's developing the Silent Hill 2. They're most known for the Layers of Fear series, as well as the most recently the Medium.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so if you're a fan, it definitely worth the check out. And I mean, there were some cool concepts in the Medium that were really creepy. So maybe they'll do a really good job with this one, and it'll pique my interest again. But that being said, Bloober Team is also known for puzzles, so they do have that going for them. I mean, Silent Hill is been a puzzle game through and through since the beginning, beyond being a survival horror game. So with their work on the Medium, especially more recently, I feel like maybe it is a good fit, but both those games kind of left foul tastes in my mouth as far as like some of the gameplay aspects. So I hope they've learned from those experiences as well.
I really hope so too, especially with such a, I guess, important project for them, given it being Silent Hill. And I think one of probably like, I still really like one of the more important titles, especially to work on out there. So that's going to be neat to see their hard work put into this, especially. And so far, at least from the gameplay trailer that we just had going, it looks like it's in good hands. So not too worried about that. Excuse me. Next thing we actually had announced was not a remake, was not a remaster. It is the first original Silent Hill sequel in a long time that was also announced.
Didn't they do a Silent Hill 2 movie?
No, hold on.
Or was
I'm
that
not
Silent
talking
Hill 3?
Hold on. Not talking the movie right now, because that's still, I'm saving that for last.
Oh, okay.
We'll get into that. No, this is the actual video game series sequel, not the movie sequel.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we'll talk about the movie here towards the end of this news part here. But we have Silent Hill F. So Silent Hill F takes place in apparently 1960s Japan. And we don't get much detail as to exactly what is going on per se, at least as it relates to like how this could tie into what Silent Hill is, because obviously this takes place in Japan and not in the United States, like where Silent Hill actually is at. But what we do actually end up gleaning from the trailer, though, is this this red vine that ends up like covering over everything and taking everything over, and seems to have the ability to almost like use the victim as a host for carrying it around further. Like if you can think like the clickers in Last of Us. I think that's the name, right? The zombie plant fungus creatures in Last of Us. Clickers. Yeah. It seems like you get about the same vibe from this as well. And it's definitely a little disturbing in the trailer, though, like to see all this stuff happening. But that's just what Silent Hill does. It's like from death comes life. You know, you almost get that same vibe with it. Needless to say, I mean, it's just you have no idea what's going to happen, but it does look pretty freaking terrifying just alone like this.
Yeah, and maybe going to a Japanese setting, they're going to tap into some of the like yokai lore, which would be cool. I mean, we did have Ghostwire Tokyo that did it recently, but being more of a survival horror game that's going to have a focused story, maybe this can do the yokai, jump scares a little bit more successfully.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it can. That's a very good point. Maybe it can handle it, especially because of how much has changed in the horror genre in the last, whenever since the last Silent Hill game came out. The next thing we've actually got here is it's not a movie, but it's a TV series. But this TV series, I guess let me answer this question here. Let's see, from Serpent Knight again in chat says, does it say if it follows the original run of games or the Homecoming reboot series? I don't know. It did not make any comment on that. Didn't see any details as it relates to it. So I guess because I'm not in with all the lore there on Silent Hill, and I think Kyle kind of alluded he was the same way too, we don't know. So you'll just have to go see if you can find any of Konami's official details on it. But back to this next one here. It's a TV series, but this TV series is part of an interactive streaming TV series. So it's something very similar to to like when they put that Minecraft Choose Your Own Adventure TV series up on Netflix, where you can kind of choose like the path you want to go through there. This looks like it's going to be the exact same thing, and it's called Silent Hill Ascension, and it's supposed to come out next year.
That'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be done between, let's see, it says the series will put a brand new Silent Hill story and characters into the hands of the audience as the narrative unfolds live on multiple platforms. Silent Hill Ascension is a collaboration between GenVid Entertainment, Bad Robot Games, Behavior Interactive, and DJ2 Entertainment, and is coming next year. So if it relies on that type of collaboration and such, though, to actually get through whatever the problems are, that's going to be a fun one to tackle, especially. But then, of course, it's trying to coordinate and actually get people together to play at the same time. So, then, of course, we had another series or another game in the Silent Hill franchise announced, and that was Silent Hill Townfall. But this is being made by Annapurna Interactive and No Code. It's called Silent Hill Townfall. And it doesn't really give much detail as to what exactly is going to happen in the game. But needless to say, again, I think, you put a franchise like this into somebody's hands who's never made anything for the franchise in the first place, that... it's like there's got to be a lot of faith into making something happen.
Right.
But all we get in the teaser anyway is just some rendered, what appears to be in-game footage with this pocket television. And as it's scrolling through the channels, we get flashes of things that you'd actually see like in the Silent Hill universe. The creatures, locations, and other problems and chaos that are waiting for you. So, not sure exactly what it could be. Maybe I don't know, maybe something interactive like a Telltale game style game potentially.
See, and that's what I was almost thinking, is maybe like a Telltale style game.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't want to make any assumption on that. Who knows? Maybe more like an Until Dawn style game.
Maybe that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then the last bit, of course, which you were just talking about earlier, is that yes, there is a new Silent Hill film in the works, which is so far titled "Return to Silent Hill." The only thing that they've talked about so far is that the original directors of Silent Hill, of the first Silent Hill movie, are coming back to this. They are basically going to be working to create effectively the sequel to the first Silent Hill movie, because there was also Silent Hill. There was a second Silent Hill movie that came out that was live action. But
yeah, and that one was actually close. It was supposed to mimic the story for Silent Hill 2, I want to say, or Silent Hill 3.
Yeah, and so this is really following more in the footsteps of Silent Hill 2, is from what at least the explanation was given during the presentation.
We'll see, because we had heard when the original one came out that it was supposed to follow the footsteps of the first game, and it was kind of way far away from it. So
True, it was.
You know, as long as it's good, you know, and the fans like it, that's all that matters.
I think the problem is that video game movies being made for the longest time, you know, they took inspiration from the video games and tried to do their best, but then they got themselves way too far off the beaten path. And now, what really set the standard for video game movies though is Sonic. And so now it's like for video game stuff, it's like, how are we going to one up Sonic with a video game movie? We've got the Mario movie we're waiting on right now. So it's like, for a Silent Hill movie, how are you going to appeal to the video game fans, or at least make sure you still appeal to them, and bring in people who have no idea what the franchise is? You know, it's going to be one of those very interesting things to see how it gets approached after not having made a movie for so long. But I'll go see it. I will gladly go see that one in theaters. I did see the first one in theaters, so I'll probably have to go see this one now too. Probably just piss myself because I don't do well with horror movies. But if I take a video game controller with me, maybe I'll feel different about it. I don't know.
You'll have something to grip and break when you get scared.
The first 30 seconds of it, when they play the THX sound, just the controller's dead. I gotta go home now. Anyway, but that was the news out of the Silent Hill showcase, though. So if you want to see more of the trailers there, or you want to watch the trailers again, or you want to go see the trailer for or the 6-minute long one talking about the upcoming movie, or you want to go see the trailers, of course, for the Resident Evil stuff, go be sure to look for those up on YouTube. Now, we move on to the last story in the main stories categories for tonight, and that is about Microsoft and Activision Blizzard and the acquisition that's going on and the chaos out of the UK. The actual review of the acquisition has moved into what they call Phase 2, and now what they're doing is reaching out for additional feedback from the public regarding the merger of Activision Blizzard and Microsoft. Which, of course, you want to ask public comment on video games, and that's a big can of worms. I don't know exactly how to feel about that one.
Yeah, you're gonna have people just giving you like the both most extreme sides of the argument. I feel like, and very loud and proud.
Oh yeah, it's like they go to review comments, and it's like, this person put their name in here as Xbox 360 noob 420 swag YOLO with the XX handlebars. It's not to say that it's like they can't contribute anything to it. I'm just saying it's like that. Just that's what you're gonna kind of see almost come in here, though. It's just like a big deluge of it. So they've reached out for public comment. The office is officially called the Competition and Markets Authority. What's interesting, though, is that this comes off the heels after Microsoft basically spoke up after the CMA dropped their Phase 1 part of the review regarding that I guess head of SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment, Jim Ryan, actually went out to the UK to talk to these guys. And when he talked to them, I guess a lot of the same talking points that he made ended up in their statement that they made, moving into Phase 2. And that set off a firestorm with Microsoft. They went nuts with what they were putting out. Like, basically, like a couple different things of note that I do recall. One of them was that they basically said that Sony has the foothold on the market right now as it relates to market penetration when it comes to the number of like consoles in the household, in households versus like what Microsoft has. And talks about like the number one selling first party titles. Most of them are on PlayStation versus Xbox. And then also dives into a lot of the shady behind the scenes dealing that that Sony does to secure some of this exclusivity. Like, there was something that actually dealt with Capcom, and that when Capcom goes to actually get its negotiation figures, like let's say with Xbox to release something on Game Pass or release something on Xbox, it can actually take those numbers, or according to SIE's contracts, they can take those numbers and use those basically as leverage to be able to get the publisher to put the game on PlayStation first, or try to move into some sort of exclusivity track. And it basically lets SIE dictate how things move next for that publisher, instead of just letting the publisher put on both. It's like a really weird lockout scenario that forces their hand, like that forces the developers and publishers' hands to say, it's like, well, it's like, this is the agreement we have to abide by. And it's your big AAA publishers too. It's not just like your indie devs or anything. It's your big AAA publishers that do this. And it's just like Microsoft laid all of this out, and it's nuts to see exactly how much is going on here. But there are a whole bunch of documents up there right now, including what Microsoft had put out there as rebuttal to what was put out by the CMA. I do strongly encourage all listeners in that to go and look up those documents and give those a read. Again, that is the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, or the CMA. Because, man, it's a very interesting insight into how exactly these deals are decided on, especially with as much leverage as Sony kind of threw in the mix by making that visit.
Right.
Yeah. But where that leaves us is the end of the main news and off to our favorite part of the show, and that's where Kyle gets to talk more. That is right, everybody. We have moved into the world of quest markers. Kyle, shall we kick things off?
Let's do it.
All right.
So, for the first quest marker of this evening, EA is shutting down multiple online servers for older games. EA says it's shutting down the online servers specifically for some titles that have less than 1% playership. Those shutdown dates and titles are as follows. Actually just happened yesterday. They saw the closure of Army of Two 40th Day and Army of Two 40th Day Devil's Cartel. Coming November 9th, they will be closing the servers for Command & Conquer Red Alert 3, Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars, Command & Conquer 3 Kane's Wrath, and Mercenaries 2 World in Flames. And then January 19th will be the final round of closures that are announced thus far, with Gatling Gears, the original Mirror's Edge servers, and NBA Jam on Fire Edition, and Shank 2. According to Game Rant, the shutdown of NBA Jam's online servers will make 2 achievements impossible to unlock, unfortunately.
Boo.
So if you haven't unlocked them and you're really just striving to have that flawless achievement score, better hop on it soon. In our next bit of news, looks like Xbox. This is one I actually accidentally skipped. Xbox will let you control your TV volume from the UI. In a recently dropped update for October, the Xbox Series consoles will allow gamers to adjust their TV's volumes through certain TVs. As long as your Xbox is hooked up through the Xbox interface with the HDMI CEC port on your TV, you'll be able to access this feature. You'll also will include new ways to set your Xbox home console, so there's no more trying to fight with having one person sign in and other guests having to sign in after them in order for that guest to play the game that they purchased on a single console that's shared. Now, one
Thank
person
God.
can set their console, and that's where the game's at.
Thank God.
So, yeah, no doubt. And then in our last bit of news, the father of Sims, Will Wright, is making a blockchain game.
Yay.
So Will Wright, the creator of Sims, has announced that he is working on Voxverse. And the game will basically be like The Sims and will allow players to purchase land, create shops in which they can create and sell NFTs, basically in-game objects that you can customize at single click to your liking and then sell to other players in the game. Wright says he has no interest in actually selling NFTs. However, the game's premise does seem to target big spenders, spending crypto on large amounts of in-game land in order for players to come and utilize the shops that the whales have set up in order to make a pittance of money off of NFTs, selling them for the other person. Of course, it will be a social game, so you'll be able to get on and hang out with your friends and do all sorts of Sim stuff and Second Life-ish stuff in this new Voxverse game when it releases. No word on that as of yet.
Hooray.
But that's it for our quest markers on October 21st.
That is, yes. And with that, then that wraps up the news for this week. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this week's Weekly News Roundup, again, for October 21st, 2022. Thank you again. And of course, you can always listen to this if you missed out on anything over on your favorite podcast platform of choice. You can find that and all of our other podcast episodes over on anchor.fm/the-NPCs-podcast and the podcast platforms we're supported on, including Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch of others. Of course, follow us here on YouTube, so when we do go live with the news, you are going to be made aware of it, and you'll be able to follow along with us and contribute along in chat as we're talking about the news of the week as it relates to gaming. With all of that, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We will catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.